Hey everyone, welcome back to this Kubernetes series of 0 to KH Hero. So as you know, in the last video, we have deployed our very first pod and see how we can create our YAML or create our pod using YAMLs. In this video, we'll understand what deployment is and how we can create deployment using these YAML files so that we don't have to create pod and our deployment can manage those pods automatically. So it's very similar to how we create pods. So very first thing I have to do is define API version, which in this case is apps/v1. Then I have kind, which is deployment. Then I have metadata, which is a dictionary name. So I can say demo nginx deploy or deploy, actually, deploy. Then I have labels. I can give label as app, demo, nginx. Then again, spec. So within spec, there is another property called replicas. So for now, I'll give it 2. Then I have selector. I can say match labels, app, demo, nginx. And now we have template. Make sure to follow the same indentation because indentation is really important when writing these YAMLs. Now within template, we give the template of our actual pod. So whatever thing I have mentioned here within the spec, I can copy these and my metadata and paste it here. This all should be under template. And I don't need the name because name is managed by deployment itself. So this is what a typical deployment looks like. Let's understand what each of the component means. Again, the API version is basically telling that deployment belongs to the apps API group. That's why we are using apps v1, which is the stable version for the deployments. Kind, obviously what kind of resource it is. So in this case, it's a deployment. Then the name of our deployment, which comes under metadata, which is just additional information. Then we have labels to identify these deployments. Then we have spec. So spec is basically configurations or specifications for your deployments. Replicas is basically telling how many copies of the pod that you're creating you want. So in this case, I want 2 replicas or 2 copies of my pod. That's why I have given replicas as 2. Then we have selector. So selector basically tells the deployment which pod it should manage. In this case, any pod with the label demo nginx, app demo nginx, will be managed by this particular deployment. That's why I told you earlier that these labels are used to identify the resources. So within my pod definition or pod template, you see I have given it a label demo nginx, and within the selector of the deployment, I'm telling that any pod with the label demo nginx should be managed by this deployment itself. So that's how labels are used, and that's why labels are important. And this can be anything. You can add anything here. And if you're saying that I want selector jelly demo nginx, then you have to create a pod that should have the same labels. So you have to use that same jelly word here as well. So this can be anything. It's up to you. But by convention, people use same kind of labels. For example, app. That's why I've just mentioned app and then the label value. But you can use whatever you want. And then within the template, rest of the things are pretty straightforward. It's just the pod definition or pod template. So it's self-explanatory. I don't need to explain what's going on here. Now that we have our deployment, it's time to create our deployment. So I'm gonna bring our terminal. I already have Minikube running, so I'm gonna do kubectl get pods. And you see I already have a pod running for 14 minutes. I can say, now if I want to delete this pod, I can say kubectl delete pod, and then the name of the pod. And this pod is deleted. Now if I do kubectl get pods, there's no resource. So let's apply deployment. So obviously I need a path and same command, kubectl. Now before that, similar how we get our pods, we can get our deployments as well. So these commands are very straightforward and very easy to remember. So kubectl get deployments. As of now, I don't have any deployments at all. So I can say kubectl apply -f and then the path is not Linux friendly. So I'm gonna change these quickly. And this should be /mnt/c. If I hit enter, again, same error. This should be camel case, so match labels. Now, if I apply again, my deployment is created. So if I do kubectl get deployments, you see I have a deployment. 2 for 2 means because I have 2 replicas running, and it's saying that 2 replicas out of 2 pods are already and in a healthy state. If I do kubectl get pods, you see these 2 pods. And this GUID, you see here, this is added by deployment to differentiate between the pods. Now, to showcase the power of the deployment, let's say for some reason this pod dies, or for some reason, or by mistake, I delete this pod. So kubectl delete pod. Now you see this pod is deleted. Now, when I do kubectl get pods, technically I should see only 1 pod, but when I do that, I see 2 pods running. Why is that? As I mentioned earlier, deployment takes care of everything. So if I am saying that I should always have 2 replicas running, deployment will make sure that no matter what, you always have 2 replicas within your cluster. So even if you delete, or even for some reason your pod crashes, deployment will make sure to bring new pod for serving requests. Now, for example, let's say you need more instances of your application or more instance of your pods. What you can do simply is just, instead of 2, increase the replicas and go to your terminal and reapply the file. So it's configured again. Now, if you get the pods, you see 5 nginx pods running. So it's as simple as that. You don't need to rewrite the pods again. Now imagine if you don't have the deployment, what you have to do to create 5 pods is create 5 different files and apply each of those. So you can already see how hectic process is that, and deployment kind of makes it easy for us. And also the fact that it manages everything in related to life cycle of the pod. So I hope you understand how powerful deployment is. In the next video, we'll see what service is and how, using the service, we can expose our uh, pod or expose the application within the pod to the external world, or people can access our service that's deployed within the pod. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. And if you have any doubt, feel free to drop the comment. And if you like the video, hit the subscribe button and like the video. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much.